on. Well, the microphone is on, and we're
Hello,
starting in a minute. Hello,
everyone.
everybody.
Happy
right.
Sunday. Happy Monday if you're in Australia, New Zealand, in that part of the world.
I hope we have all the technical stuff worked out this time. We have a new camera, so it shouldn't have a terrible delay and drop out all the time like last time. So hopefully you can see what's going on. And we're going to talk about, what are we talking about today?
We are going to talk about how to do a transatlantic crossing, how to take your own boat across the Atlantic Ocean, any ocean for that matter. Last week we spoke about ocean sailing, overnight sailing, offshore sailing, and we got a lot of interest in transatlantic crossings. And Paul and I have done 7 and are about to do our 8th this fall.
Yep.
And we're just so delighted that you're here. Where is everybody from? Where are you tuning in from today?
Okay, we've got...
Okay, Karina is back from Stockholm, Sweden. Thanks for your contributions last week, Karina. And, someone's landlocked in St. Louis. St. Louis. Dennis. And, Wichita, Kansas, welcome. Rick from Alvor, Portugal. We're going to be sailing down the Portuguese coast next summer. No sound.
No, the sound's back. We're all good to go.
Oh, perfect.
Yep.
Yay, a little bit of delay there.
Yeah, it's got a 10-second delay, so...
Thank you, everybody. And, Chris says, yes, much better. Natalie, all
This is
good.
so much fun, I tell you. We would so much love to do this from out on the boat somehow.
Yes.
And be able to be out in an anchorage somewhere or sailing somewhere and send a Q&A back in like this, and it is completely impossible. I don't think it'll ever work. So even in the studio, we can't control it well enough to make it work.
Wow.
Anyway, let's talk about sailing around the Atlantic or across the Atlantic. We were going to talk about route planning to start with.
Yes, but first I'd just like to introduce ourselves to those of you that are new to Distant Shores. I'm Cheryl Shard and my husband Paul. And for the last 27 years, we have been sailing internationally on our boat. We sail about 8 months of the year filming the Distant Shores Sailing Adventure TV series, which is on in 24 languages around the world. If you don't receive the show on a channel in your country, check out our website. There's all kinds of ways that you can download the shows, and we will be giving away DVDs. We have the box set of all 130 episodes. So anybody that comments throughout the seminar today, your name will be drawing from those names. So please feel free to question and comment, and we'll be doing a draw for some Distant Shores DVDs. So we have done, as I said, 7 Atlantic crossings. So we'll be sharing some of those experiences. And we have some special guests that will be joining us, friends that have sailed with us on various passages, just to talk about their experiences.
So there's the map of the Atlantic. If you're thinking of Atlantic crossings, I know we have some people who are planning that. We already had a few comments. People who are going to be doing a crossing this fall, as we will on a catamaran. If you're looking at the map to start with, a number of people ask, you've got this time off, you'd like to do a crossing, but let's do it in September. And September is not a good time because of the hurricanes. Mm-hmm. So just to look at the planning from the start, we'll move over to one of our great weather tools, and this is just one of the huge changes over the years we've been cruising, that now you can really have such fantastic resources, even out at sea. This is a Predictwind showing up, and you can, on our last crossings, we received this information with the IridiumGO, a little satellite, and we'll put some links down to those products. I will start this one running. There it is. So this is going to be showing animation of what you're seeing, what the weather will be over the next week. So I just captured all this morning, and this is basically, it's animating the next week, and you can see the winds. If I just put my cursor across here. So this is showing the winds as I hover my cursor on different parts of the map. To cross over in the fall, you want to have this kind of weather with you're likely to have this kind of following winds, but probably really nice winds all the way across this part of the trade wind route, leaving the Cabo Verde Islands and across the Caribbean. That's 2,000 miles. And it'll be behind you. Right. And that's one of those ocean passages. It's the classic one. The wind always comes from behind.
Okay, and what about going to the east?
Yes, going the other way. So let's take a look. What if we were going to try to do that? So here we'd be, say, in the Caribbean or in the States, say Florida, and you wanted to head up and across. You obviously have to go north. You can't just go backwards directly, say, into the Mediterranean, because you'd be straight into all this wind the whole time. So this is a normal passage, normal time this time of year to have a kind of a high pressure out in the middle near the Azores called the Azores High. And that's what you're planning to go around.
So if you're heading from North America to Europe, the best time to do this is in May and June, because the trade winds have settled down a little bit and hurricane season doesn't officially start until June. So you generally have good conditions, no worries about tropical storms or hurricanes as you work your way. Whatever your route is, if you're coming from, say, the Chesapeake Bay, people often jump out to Bermuda. That's one of the waypoints, and then make another stop at the Portuguese islands of the Azores, which we fell in love with and ended up spending the whole summer cruising there and have been back many times. And then on, from the Azores, people jump up to Ireland, the UK, onto Gibraltar if they want to go into the Med, or as we did in our last season, just carried on doing an Atlantic circuit. And from the Azores, we went to Madeira, Canary Islands.
There, and then the Canaries, and then on to the Cape Verde and around.
Right.
So we did that as one year. I'll run a little video of that, and that sort of shows why you're going to avoid the hurricanes and everything that way. Spring means sailors in the tropics must consider what to do for hurricane season, where storms from Africa make it dangerous to cruise in the Caribbean. Distant Shore's plan had been to head south through the Caribbean out of the hurricane belt to Trinidad and Tobago, but Cheryl has come up with the brilliant idea that we head north across the Atlantic to visit the Azores for the summer, out of the way of tropical storms. Then we can visit Madeira, the Canary Islands, and Cabo Verde Islands as interim stops en route to the southern Caribbean, adding just over 6,000 miles to the trip. Yeah, 6,000 additional miles. It was a good plan.
It was a great summer.
Very good. Sure. Well, and that crossing, I'd have to mention about that crossing. I wonder if I'll put a shot of that up there. Yeah, so going across the middle of the Atlantic from the Caribbean, basically, again, you can't head straight to the Azores because you'll probably wind up being into the wind. So we headed north, nearly went to Bermuda, and then just straight across to the Azores, which was our goal that year. So
and then
that was very quiet sail. So
yes,
luckily our boat's really good in light air, and we could sail along, sometimes just hitting 5 knots and 6 knots in 6 or 7 knots of wind.
Yeah, and it was lovely because with such calm seas, we could really see whales and dolphins at the surface so easily. It was a beautiful, beautiful crossing.
We made a video about that, crossing over to the Azores, and that's a TV show. And
actually, that is in season 10.
Yes, that's right.
That west to east crossing, North America to Europe. There's several episodes in that season, and that will be second prize for our draw.
And I know one of the common questions we've had, a number of people write in and say, what about big waves and stuff? And definitely that crossing is one where you won't get very big waves. I think the biggest we saw in that crossing was probably 3 feet.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe 4 feet.
Pretty calm. A lot of motoring.
Yeah, there was a bunch of motoring too. And it's really lovely though.
But you really want to prepare for light wind. We're all worried about storm tactics, and of course you want to be prepared for that. But most of the time, you're dealing with light wind and downwind conditions on the way back. And the best time to come back from Europe down to the Caribbean is in the fall and winter months.
Generally wait till hurricane season's over, and then most people try to do it early so that they get more time in the Caribbean. That's kind of a plan. So you try to maximize the Caribbean time, so you leave sometime in November.
That's right.
You can leave right through January, really.
Yeah, we've done a January crossing, and that was very nice because then, the trades are really settled in, the trade winds.
I guess the only thing about that is the Canaries are pretty cold that time of year, so it was pretty freezing when we left the Canaries.
Cold is all relative if you're from Toronto,
we
Canada.
had some pretty heavy jackets. No, it wasn't snow or anything.
Yeah, but November, the World Cruising Club and many rallies leave the Canary Islands in November. It's a bit early in the season to start that, but there are no danger of hurricanes on the European shore, and it means that you get to the Caribbean before Christmas, and that's
perfect.
really,
it's a
nice.
Good time.
It's really nice, and we've had beautiful crossings, and
it's
so
a great
that's
crossing
good
because you
time
do
of year.
get the winds coming behind you all the time. And
Yes.
it's following wind, and even though the waves get up to 10, 12 feet, usually when they're behind you, that's not a very big deal.
Right. And I just see that Anthony Camilleri from Malta has joined
Hey,
us.
Anthony.
Hello, Anthony. Anthony joined us on our last transatlantic crossing. In fact, he was our secret weapon for doing so well in the ARC rally. And
Tweaking the sails all the time, and Anthony's a very good sailor.
Fabulous sailor. And
but I have a little piece with Anthony in it, and
Great.
so I'll give you a feeling of what it's like to be out there on breezy days, zipping along across the Atlantic. This crossing we did via the Cape Verde with Anthony on board.
Oh, and he says,
Doug
hi,
as
I'm
well.
watching from a bay near Capo Colonna in Crotone. Hey,
Okay.
that's cool.
Well, that's very nice. Well, Anthony here will give you a bit of a reminiscence of the crossing a year and a half ago, so I'll just run that now.
We are on day 11 on the ARC Plus, sailing from Mindelo to St. Lucia on board Distance Shores 2. Thanks to Paul and Cheryl and our friend Doug. We had 11 days of fun, beautiful sailing weather conditions with winds of force 4 from the east-northeast, occasionally going up to 5 and 6, and only a few times up to 7 in the squalls. Couldn't have asked for better weather for this. It's like a dream come true. 2,000 miles already clogged with 83 miles to go. We should be in St. Lucia this evening to celebrate.
It's been an incredible trip. Really enjoyed it. I've learned so much. I've been having fun and just enjoying the weather, enjoying the company, enjoying the boat.
This trip has been on my wish list for a number of years. And finally, thanks to you, I get the chance to accomplish such a beautiful voyage.
Okay, we're back again. And that was with Anthony on board and also with Doug, who we have here today. So,
Hello.
So I was going to just say I know a number of people have been thinking what would they think of maybe doing an ocean crossing, worried about it or concerned or just wondering if they could do it or would do it. And could you just tell us a little about what you felt like when you first got into it?
Sure. I didn't have any hesitation on doing the crossing. I was definitely the junior member on the crew of this crossing. I had a little bit of experience having my own share time on a boat. I'd taken some courses and that sort of thing, but it was the first time I'd actually been out in the ocean and doing a crossing, and I just enjoyed it thoroughly.
Was it good, do you think, that we did the Cape Verde leg as well, or did that add to it, or did it make it too long for you? I mean, you had to...
I think it definitely added to it. It was kind of nice because you got the 4 or 5 days from the Canaries to the Cape Verde. Then we had a few things we needed to fix on the boat, and gave us a chance to do that. Gave us a chance to kind of regroup and get ready, and then the second half coming across to St. Lucia was that much easier.
Yeah, it was kind of two different journeys really, because there was the feeling of leaving the Canaries and having the sort of less predictable weather heading south, and then you get into I guess we had some calms off the desert too.
We did. We got a lot of sand blowing in on the boat at that point, and also it's kind of nice because it's like 2 voyages in one, because you get to make landfall twice.
Yeah, That's true. That is nice, and have a couple of days off in the middle.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the other part of it was shorter, because that was 11 and a bit, and that's way faster than we've done it. But we've also not done such a short crossing,
Yeah.
because it's nearly 3,000 miles if you go all the way from the Canaries direct to the Caribbean, or only a little over 2,000 if you cut that bit off. So,
We just
Yeah.
had a question about, did you find having the two head sails out worked well, and did you have them out for most of the way?
yeah, there was lots to learn with the way we rigged the boat, and we were sort of practicing as we went. I've got a couple of pictures of that. There's that one. That's our twin headsail rig, isn't it? I've got it sort of showing the downwind pole. The next boat we're going to try having two poles, so we could run a pole
Yeah.
on each side, so have each headsail, and maybe not use the main as often.
Yeah, definitely having the two head sails out. We had a lot of sail out. And it was very fast. I mean, a lot of people were commenting on how quickly we were able to move along.
Yeah, the two headsails is a great rig, because as opposed to a spinnaker that you're goofing around with all the time, these are just, you basically lock them in and have the pole.
And it was very easy to reef. You know, we a couple times in the middle of the night we'd have a squall that would come across, and it was very simple to just reel in the head sails, reel in the main, and you know, let the squall pass and be back to normal again.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we love that rig, and we'll definitely, with the new boat, our intention is to have the same two headsails, but then to have even a second pole, so you can, because we kind of did that by putting it on the end of the boom, didn't we?
Yeah, we had it
works.
roped out. Anthony was able to come up with all kinds of different ways to rig it for us.
Yeah, that was funny. We'd wake up the next morning and say, what does that green line do now? Yeah, that's rigged to do something else. So. Well, thank you very
Yes.
much for chatting, and it was great fun having you, and
Definitely.
you don't have any regrets?
I don't have any. I feel totally comfortable now. I'm looking forward to doing more ocean crossings myself, and definitely what I learned was incredible.
And before you'd done it, you'd just done one overnight, and
I
that
did.
wasn't a problem.
That was part of a course that I was on. It was a ASA 107, I believe it is, and yeah, it was a learning experience. It's different though when you actually do a crossing, because it takes a couple of days for you to just get into the rhythm of the watches and that sort of thing, and be comfortable with it all.
You'd probably say, though, you'd want to have done it overnight before you
I think
set
so.
off to do a crossing, because that would be potentially another big worry that you didn't have to worry about.
Yeah.
Neil says, how about mentioning radar to see squalls at night?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We had the radar that was showing us where the squalls were, and we were able to avoid them for the most part. It was just occasionally that it would sneak up on you, and you couldn't avoid it. But having done the overnight, well, that's actually, I guess, what my fear was is what do you do? You're out there by yourself. Everybody else is asleep, and you've got a squall coming through. But then after you've done it a couple of times, it just became part of the routine.
Reefing the jib up a
yeah.
little bit and putting things away. Yeah, the radar we found worked great. I shamelessly put Raymarine up there. We were Raymarine ambassadors. Yay, Raymarine. But their radar, that high definition radar,
It's hard to hear you from the mic.
it's really great. The microphone's a bit quiet, is it? Okay, well, that's why I was using the other mic, but it didn't work, so can't have everything.
Rob Heath is asking, did you have a snatch block on the end of the pole to run the sheet through?
Did we have a snatch block on the end of the pole? No, we ran it through the jaws and chafed through the line. So that might have been, we have to work on that for the next time. That was our weakest problem, I think. Is the chafe, it's one of the things that's hard to understand about a crossing, because if you've done sailing and you'll sail downwind for an hour or 2 hours, 3 hours,
Can hear you loud and clear now.
and it's nothing like a crossing, because suddenly it's like 5 days, and what would have been just a tiny little bit of chafe suddenly means the sail's flapping, you got to put it in and resort it. So chafe was definitely our
was
biggest
definitely-
enemy, wasn't it?
It was an issue, and we had the rubber chafe guard on the line
Yeah,
going
that
through,
was the
and
best.
that lasted 6 or 7 days
Yeah.
before it broke through, and then we didn't have that. We switched the lines around after that broke through, and I think that only lasted a day and a half before it broke a second time.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine, but it's a great crossing to have that wind, but yeah, the chafe Chafe is the enemy, isn't it?
Do you guys want to talk about communication?
Yeah, let's do a little bit on communications. I have a communication thing. So here's our Iridium Go. I'll just make us disappear.
Doug, you could tell your story about that.
There's our little Iridium Go. That's actually Cheryl's iPhone. That's the Iridium. So this is just a funny little box, and it does everything, but you don't press any buttons. So you just connect your phone or your computer through that little box. It talks to satellite, and suddenly your phone becomes a satellite phone. And we're doing the communications as well as, so emails through our computer, you were doing it through Oceans?
Yes, there was a Oceans app which you can get on your phone, which allowed you to just get the subject lines of each email, so you didn't have to download all your emails, and so you just picked and choose the ones you wanted to download. And I did download one from my IBM rep at the time, and was able to respond to an issue that was happening at work. And I was talking with her the other day, and she was saying she's told so many people that story that she got this email from the middle of the ocean renewing our subscription for another year.
It's pretty incredible, isn't it, to be able to communicate? And it isn't fast, so you're not going to get on, you're not doing your banking, checking your YouTube channels or anything like that. But emails without attachments, the weather, we even sent really small compressed pictures into our office, who put them up on Facebook, and all to do this through this funny little box. And it was $125 a month for this unlimited data, unlimited slow data. Quite magic that you can do that.
And it connects to Predictwind.
Yeah, and that was the Predictwind. So that's this app that we have here that's running Predictwind. And so that kind of information was coming down too. So just incredible change in the years to be able to do that. So
What about sideband radio? Was some of the people using that? What other ways to communicate?
what other ways are there to communicate? Are you getting these questions there? Yeah. Well, the sideband never really worked.
We
but
couldn't
tried
get
our
it to
best.
work. No,
Couldn't get it to work.
Other people were using it, and it worked quite well for a number of the people that were crossing at the same time.
Yeah.
We couldn't get ours working.
Yeah. Oh well. But
and Neil-
emailed.
Neil says mention the tracking function of the Iridium.
Oh yeah, that was great. Iridium. It has you can set up it to ping a position up, and it puts it up on a website. So we had put that on our page, and I think we were updating them every hour or something. Did we have? So there was a whole little steady line of pins that anyone could look at on our website, and a family can check. And did you find that? Was any of your family worried about you, or they didn't mind? You just disappeared.
I just took off. No, they. But no, my family was following and watching to see where we were and that sort of thing. But we were also able to exchange emails back and forth, which was kind of nice.
Quite nice.
Yeah.
It's incredible, really. Yeah. That's great. You have any other questions there, Sher?
When's the new boat going to be ready? Oh,
When's the new boat going to be ready? There's the new boat. So we're planning trips with that. We've put these up on the website. We've got a whole bunch of. This is a plan I've done of the interior of the boat and the way we're looking at the bunks. So we've got a couple of bunks aft, bunk cabin forward, and then the forward cabin double V-berth. And so we have people come along on the passages, and that boat will not be ready until next spring, but then we'll be setting sail and doing an Atlantic crossing. You can join us. These are some of the legs we've put up, including this Atlantic crossing and a smaller crossing getting out to the Canaries from Gibraltar. That's kind of a cool, if you're not ready for a whole Atlantic crossing. You never thought of that kind of thing, did you, doing that?
I did. I just didn't have the opportunity to, and I mean, I think any chance you get to be on the ocean and participate in this sort of thing is a great learning experience. I learned so much in the doing the crossing. It really helped me with my confidence in sailing in general, but just learning from you guys and from Anthony, I really took away a lot.
Well, we had a lot of fun having you, so it was definitely great. I was just going to put another one up. This is a little movie just showing basically some of the lighter air conditions. I know a lot of people ask, what about storms and what about rough weather? And really, planning the lighter air stuff is definitely key to succeeding on the ocean, because we were going ahead of other people, just getting ahead of bigger boats, just because we could handle light air. So we have 2 jibs up there in our mainsail, and you can see how flat the water is. We are holding and a lot of this was on the way to the Cape Verde, by the way. I don't know if you remember exactly when I shot this, but that was going to the Cape Verde, and it was, I guess, 8 days, 5 days, 800 miles, and really a lot of it was like that, and some of it was even lighter, actually. So getting the boat ready for that, as well as getting ready for storms, is really key. Dealing with storms. Oh, talking about joining a rally, pros and cons of joining a rally. We don't think of ourselves as rally people, but we've done the ARC rally 2 times and have had fun with it. Definitely loved this ARC Plus, though, because of having to stop, wasn't it?
Having to stop, one of the things the rally gives you is the seminars beforehand and the camaraderie of people that are traveling kind of with you. What's interesting, though, is that, there were 70 boats crossing at the same time as we were, and other than the start, we really didn't see anybody out there. We were sort of neck and neck with one boat coming across, and I remember we contacted him with the radio at one point, and he kept asking, "That's a very fast boat you have there. How is it you've got it rigged?"
We were going faster than most of the other boats out there, for sure. But this light air stuff is good. And the rally was fun. I don't know about the ARC itself is big, so you don't get to meet as many people, but the little ARC Plus stopping at Cape Verde was a ride.
ARC 1500, should they have radar?
I'm a huge fan of radar. Should they have radar? Someone has sent in a question, should you have radar? I would definitely. Radar is one of the things I would not give up. You think because you've got AIS, you've got to detect ships, maybe you don't need radar, but I wouldn't want to be without it.
Definitely, the radar was very helpful. I remember when we were coming into Cape Verde, and it was very dark. It was the middle of the night, and there was a boat that wasn't on the AIS, but we did spot it on radar, and we were coming fairly close to it when we saw it on the radar, and we were able to avoid it at the time.
Yeah, and I think we use it a lot also for squalls. So when you see the storm coming up behind you, you can turn on the radar and you can see quite clearly the hard part of the squall, what is going to be the stronger winds part. Allowed us to reef in advance, or even to shift the course a little bit one way or the other and avoid the weather. So that crossing, doing the Caribbean 1500, you're kind of threading the needle between the bad hurricane season and the winter storms. And it's likely to be a rougher passage than this Atlantic crossing, even though it's not as long. And I would definitely want to have radar on for that. How are we doing, Sherry? Got some more questions?
What about security? Are there security concerns when sailing around Europe? Can you repeat the question, Paul?
What about security concerns? So are there any security worries when you're sailing around Europe? Certainly for Europe, I'd say we haven't had any worries about security. In any big town, there's a chance of people coming and pilfering stuff off the boat. That's probably the biggest concern, but I don't think of any other kind of concerns. There isn't any piracy, and it's easy to avoid pirates. Everybody says, what about pirates? But there's so few areas in the world where they're a worry that I wouldn't be concerned about it. Dealing with storms, we don't really talk about it because we didn't really have storms, just those squalls that we were talking about, wasn't it?
Just some small squalls. The other thing is with the Predictwind and those kinds of tools that are available now, you plan your departures to miss all these things, and you can stay out of the way for the most part.
I remember that when we were in the Cape Verde, because we were planning the crossing might take 11 or 12 days, but the Predictwind had a rough, of course it gets very rough by the time you're getting more than a week out, but they offered a 12 or 13 day forecast. So that meant we could see a rough prediction all the way ahead of 12 days. And as we were thinking, well, maybe we should head a little bit north or a little bit south. And you can make those kind of decisions, which really mitigates the impact of storms in a lot of cases. And being able to update the forecast again, which we grabbed another update every day on the crossing, and that really helped.
And that was a good thing about the rally.
Yeah, the rally, that Cheryl's saying in the back, that was a good thing about the rally. And
They provided weather.
they had a weather router who was doing routing to help. But of course, the rally is a bit handicapped because they pretty much say they're going to leave definitely on this one day, and they do. Whereas we usually will shift it a little bit to try to get the best start.
And the boats are also spread out as well. They're trying to predict for everybody, whereas with the tool of Predictwind, you're able to see exactly from where you are and where you're headed. There were a few times where we did veer off course a little bit to avoid or to catch better wind and avoid some downtime.
And I think we were pretty lucky because as we were crossing, we kept realizing that we were more or less staying in a perfect little bubble on that particular crossing. Yeah. We were really lucky in a way. But
questions.
More questions in the back? Yes, yeah. Sure.
AIS is transmitting is great, and with radar and other electronics, how do you charge the batteries?
Oh yes. So AIS. Definitely, if you have a chance and you haven't already bought an AIS, definitely get a transmitting one. Don't worry about Big Brother watching. If you don't want Big Brother to watch, you can put it into silent mode. But the ability to have ships see you and show up on their AIS displays, they all have AIS, they all have it on, they're all watching.
Explain AIS.
AIS is Automatic Identification System, and I'll just put this up, the map in the background. I'll put that map up. So the AIS will have you, and you can see what's around you within a sort of 25-mile radius received via VHF signal. And then the AIS transmitting means your signal will be sending out all your details about your ship, where you're going, your name, how fast you're going, and other ships in a radius of about 10 miles will see you too. So that's totally brilliant, and it uses so little power I couldn't even figure out how much it used because it was so small. So definitely get one of those. The running AIS didn't use anything, but of course we were running the fridge, the freezer was our big pigs. Yeah. The autopilot, of course, uses a fair bit,
and the radar as well.
The radar but we don't have that on all the time, but it uses a lot. But then that year we had done I wonder if I've got a picture of that. There's a picture showing the power. So that's our solar panel. The boat looks like she's sinking, but actually she's just in a wave at sea. But you can see our solar arch that we added on that spring just before that crossing, and that was 465 watts of solar power, and that was really great. That gave the boat really all we needed, I think, didn't it? Yeah. Oh, another question, how do we set the lifting keel for those passages? Our boat has a swing keel, so we can draw 3 feet with it all the way up, or 10 feet with it all the way down. And for downwind, we really like to have it partially swung up. And that really seemed to make the boat really happy to go downwind. So, because it swings, so it comes aft, and that means that the center of effort is moved further aft, and the boat just really is more steady on a straight downwind path. I think Neil McGubbin is online there somewhere also. Neil has a similar aluminum Garcia that also has a similar keel, and I know he's a proponent of having it up, even all the way up, so that if you're in really big waves, the boat just sort of handles and slides down the wave rather than broaching. So we do that as well. So that's great. Okay. What else have we got there, Cher?
We've got some provisioning questions. Maybe
do you want to come in and slide in and do those?
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Doug. It was great having you on the crossing, and thanks for coming in today to share your experience.
Yes. Yeah, so I got a couple of provisioning questions here about, how much food to take, how do you know what to take, how much water to bring and plan for. And I'm very fortunate that I don't get seasick. Not very often. I have to be truly terrified before I get seasick. That hasn't happened yet. So I do a lot of cooking at sea because I enjoy that it fills my time and I like to cook. When we're ashore, Paul does a lot of cooking too, but because he's a bit more sensitive to the motion, when we're on passage, I do the cooking. And that totally makes sense. Like, if your partner loves to cook and doesn't get seasick, they are the ones that should be in the galley.
And you're a lucky man.
Yeah. So we do try to divide up jobs for what everybody's strengths are, and not try to prove this is a pink job, a blue job. It's like whoever's happy and it makes the crew safe, that's what we do. But we do all, when we have people aboard, try to get them to participate and share in activities if it's something they enjoy. And when I provision for a passage, I get very organized about it. I make menu plans. I have a selection of different meals that I would do if it's heavy weather. I keep it very simple. We do a lot of snacking if the weather gets bad, because you don't want people, dealing with a lot of stuff, or you're not going to be sitting at a table probably. So, and I bring on a lot of dry goods so that I can bake bread. So I have flour and rice and a lot of fresh produce. And I try to plan for the worst situation as far as needing food at sea. So if we were dismasted, we could be out there for a long time. So I have a lot of food. I do carry a lot of canned, tinned goods, but mostly as backup and as maybe a base to add fresh vegetables to. And I have a guide to provisioning, a free ebook with all my checklists and shopping lists and suggestions for putting together a meal. So if you're interested in that, please go to distantshores.ca for Canada, distantshores.ca, and contact us and just send me a note, and I will make sure that I or Dawn, our office manager, will send that to you. So, and I still use those lists, and it's got suggestions for how long certain vegetables lasts and different meals
Now
and things.
it's easier though with the fridge and the freezer as well.
Yes,
so
when we
it's a
first
bit more-
started cruising on Two-Step, our first boat, we didn't have refrigeration, just an ice box, and we did our longest passage in that boat, 20 days from the
Yeah.
Canary Islands to Brazil.
And a block of ice lasted for like nearly 2 weeks. On
And
that
you can
crossing.
carry a lot of fresh vegetables without refrigeration. And I grew bean sprouts, and I made yogurt in a thermos.
Yeah.
And, you get creative. But certainly is much nicer to have a fridge and freezer, although it becomes a power issue, doesn't it? But
somewhat. The solar panels really were a huge difference, because
Yeah.
we've done the 2 crossings, almost identical crossings with the 49, and the difference of the solar amount of power it put in was enormous.
Yes,
So.
yeah, that was great. Yeah, and for water, on our southerly 42, we had a water maker.
That's good. Go ahead.
Yeah, but we have just seen so many instances where, with the hard sailing of a passage, can be water maker failures. So we do not rely on the water maker for a passage. We still carry a lot of bottled water and fruit juices and beer and anything like that. And we do have ways that we can catch water at sea, where again we don't rely on that, because you often get a lot of salt in the water. If there's squalls, there's usually salt spray too. So, but a lot of people do that. And in my provisioning book, I have a table for how much water you should carry per person per day, for survival, for washing and cooking, and so on. So if you would like that, please send us an email and we'll get that to you. Yeah, but we enjoy cooking. We eat well, because not a lot goes on when you're on a boat at sea, and so meals become a real highlight and a social time where there's a watch change and you all get together. And
I don't know about not a lot goes on, you think. I mean, lots of stuff. Flying fish and whales come past, and there's birds here and there, and there's
but
waves, and
compared
you're
to
setting
life
the...
ashore.
Well, yeah. You don't like tweaking the sails. That's part. You would rather
Yeah, there you go.
go make bread than
Yeah, nothing's
adjust
happening.
The sails. Nothing's happening. Sails look fine. I'll go down below decks.
Make some cookies.
That was a fun watch schedule, though, this last time, because we had 4 people on the crossing with Doug and Anthony. And then because of the 4, we thought, well, why don't we divide it up, that the 3 of us take the watches and Cheryl could just do basically provisioning and
Yeah,
galley
and
duty the whole time,
and I
which you
was-
wanted. It was your idea to do that.
Yeah, and I loved it. And I was on call, so if anybody needed help, reefing or if there's something happened, I would be there. So it didn't wake up the rest of the crew unless, it was a real issue. But actually, Doug has a good story. I'm going to call him back about, is anything going on at sea?
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Yeah, jump in.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that I did was I had downloaded a whole list of movies that I intended to watch, because I thought I was going to be bored. And I realized about halfway through that I hadn't actually watched any of the movies yet. So I thought, okay, tonight I'm going to watch a movie. So I got my iPad out and I got my all set up and I started watching a movie. And I realized about a quarter of the way through the movie, and it was a pretty decent movie too, that I wasn't even watching it anymore. I was watching the waves and the stars and the sails and just paying attention to, real life was a lot more interesting than anything that was on the movie at the time. It was kind of a revelation to me that because I thought I was going to be really bored and I wasn't at all.
It's a bit of a myth, I guess. Nothing's happening out there because there is. Every day there was flying fish and there was the waves and the clouds would come up and look different and I mean we've spent I don't know how many 200 days at sea outside of land, but you had only spent really 1 before, and then to do that crossing, it all was new and everything was exciting.
It was all new and exciting. I liken it to watching a fire. It draws your attention, the waves and the wind and the sails, and it really just captivates you in a way that things don't generally.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Let's have Maggie talk about her night sail with us.
Yeah, Cher, do you want to come in and as well?
Want to swap? Yeah, you go.
Yeah, well, you did a night sail with us.
Yep.
That was in the Azores.
Yep. We were going from Terceira to San Miguel. Yeah. So yeah, Cheryl and I took the night watch and watched freighters go by, it looked like a giant apartment building was coming and then going past you kind of thing. And it was still, I can't remember how far away from us it was, but it seemed to me to be very close. And Cheryl's like looking at the AIS and going, no, we're good. So that was really interesting. The watch went very quickly. Like you kind of think, oh my goodness, I'm out there for 4 hours, or I think it was a 4-hour watch we did. That's such a lot of time. And as Doug just mentioned, things go really quickly because you're looking at this and you're looking at that, and we were together. That was also a good part for me, having only done one other night passage, to have company. So both times I've done it, I've never been by myself. So kind of ease into this stuff. So yeah, Cheryl and I took the watch together, and and she pointed out things that I didn't see. So that was really, really helpful.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have a question from Natalie who's relates to that because she's saying you've done crossings with just yourselves and with additional crew. What considerations was it if it was just for 2 crew? Yeah, we've done 4 transatlantics with just the 2 of us. 3 of them were on our smaller old boat. And that's the biggest consideration. I think 2 on that boat was probably all you could really have very comfortably. Whereas on the 49, it was really comfortable, even with 4 people on board. So that was one of them. And definitely, though, 2 people, it's a lot more of an endurance test. Like when there was the 4 of us or when there was the 3 of us on that overnight, it feels a lot easier because there's more people. So in terms of carrying stuff, we could have carried food and water for everybody, even on our smaller boat. But I would definitely think with 2 people, you better hope nobody gets sick. Because like if somebody cut themselves, even small, like you don't have to bang yourself on the head or get bitten by a shark or anything. Just something simple like cut your hand in a knife while you're making a peanut butter sandwich, and suddenly your hand hurts, and you want the other person to take your watch, but there was only one other person. So whereas you could have, instead of doing a watch with Cheryl, you could have jumped in and done your own watches if I'd hurt myself. So, and so I think 3 is our real comfortable number, a comfortable minimum. Above that, 4 was just made it even more like a party, really, for the.
Well, you guys seem to have a great time. We were tracking you.
Yeah. Yeah, so another question I've got here is, have you done any fishing, and should one be worried about getting poisoned? Poisoned, you mean like a ciguatera, for instance. That can happen, as I understand, much more around the fish you'd catch on reefs. So I wouldn't worry about that on ocean crossing. We rarely do anything with fish at sea, just because I think we're not ready to catch and start whacking fish on the head and have blood all over the place and trying to fillet the thing and everything. But the big fisher people who love fishing definitely take the gear along, and you almost certainly will catch something. Certainly on that ocean crossing, all the other boats. Remember, Doug, they were reporting all kinds of stuff.
Valley had a fishing competition.
Yeah, and people were catching mahi dorados, big animals, and eating away. And I don't know, we just had pork chops and steak and chicken and other good things. What other questions have I got here? Oh, you're welcome, Natalie. Okay. What did we do for watches, Paul asks. Yes, what we did for watches. I think we were doing did we do 3 hours? 4. We did 4 on and 8 off. That's super luxurious. That way when you have 8 off, you can have it wasn't strictly 8 off, because we had somebody who had just had their first 4 off. We assigned them to be kind of backup. So, and you were Cheryl was a backup too. So it's kind of an odd setup, but it meant that for the first 4 hours, when you were on watch, you were on watch. But if you needed any help, you called the person who'd already slept for 4 hours. And the person who's just gone off watch, you try not to wake him up unless there's an emergency. So that's a kind of 4 on, 8 off, with that last part of it being when you're on call. So.
And we do the 2, 3, 4.
Oh, and our 2, 3, 4 watch. That's the other one that Cheryl and I do when it's just the two of us. So Natalie, if you're thinking of just 2 people on the boat, then that was an option that we liked. So we call it 4-3-2. In the middle of the day, it's super easy to do a watch. You won't fall asleep. Everything's nice. You do 4 hours between 8 in the morning and then noon, and noon to 4. And then you do a 3-hour watch, 3 to 7, and the other person does 7 to 10. And then we find it's the toughest in the middle of the night. You're tired, you haven't probably had enough sleep, and to stay awake from 12 to 2 is plenty. So we do 12 to 2 and a 2 to 4, little short watches. Then 4 to 7, 7 to 10. So it's called 4-3-2 because it's 4 hours, then 3 hours, then 2 hours. And that's the least difficult for us anyway.
And Karina mentioned her overlapping watch. Can you mention that?
Oh, can you explain that?
Yeah.
Jump in, Chip.
Yeah, I don't know if Karina is still online, but she joined us last week and mentioned that when they did their crossing, they had overlapping watches. So there would be an hour at the beginning of a watch where there were 2 people, and then there'd be an hour where the main person on watch was alone, and then the next person came up for an hour, so that you got this overlapping system. And I thought that was a good idea if you have the people to do that. Because when you do get up from being off watch, it takes a little while to wake up and get sorted and figure out what's been happening outside. And it is comforting in the middle of the night to have another person. I really enjoyed having Maggie with me and the others that have sailed with us. And it was great with Doug and Anthony because I could do a watch with Paul, which just never has happened in all our years of sailing because it was pretty much always the 2 of us on passage. But the Navy says that 4-hour watches are really a minimum that you could do for very long periods of time and get decent rest. And you and I did that on our longest passage to Brazil, 20 days. That passage, we did 4 hours the entire time, all the watches, and that was pretty good.
Got a couple of other quick questions here. Someone, Mike's saying, just joined. Were you sailing west to east or east to west? We've actually been talking about both of our more recent Atlantic crossings. So we went from west to east over to the Azores, and that was in June or late May, early June. And then we went again across in November from the Canaries down to Cape Verde. And where was the next one? So, oh, someone's asking, did we see planes, ships, or other evidence of man in the middle of the ocean? We saw, like, for instance, no garbage. We never saw any garbage.
Just
We
a
saw,
floating refrigerator once.
there was a floating refrigerator. That's true, yes.
We needed fridge parts at that
No,
point, so it was
ha,
like
ha,
tripping.
ha, no. Floating refrigerator. Yes, there was a floating fridge, so one piece of garbage. We rarely saw planes. I guess near the coast on the way to Cape Verde we saw probably some more shipping and some fishing boats because we're only 100 miles off the coast. But then crossing the big Atlantic part, we didn't see anything. But we did, as Doug mentioned earlier, we did often see other boats from the Ark Rally. But when we've crossed on our own, usually we would just see a few ships. And AIS helps you see them even if they're over the horizon.
Yes,
So.
yes. No, it's nice. I was just remembering on our last crossing from the Caribbean to the Azores, I think we were a couple of days out and we could see the contrails of jets all kind of zooming in towards Ponta Delgada. And so that was kind of reassuring. Although we had a long way to sail still, it felt like, oh, we're here, the planes are landing.
Dave asked, will your new boat have a sub? No, SSB. That makes more sense. Okay, yeah, SSB.
You would love a sub.
A sub would be great. No, SSB. We probably won't actually for the new boat, but we just love that Iridium and the ability to communicate. So I think we'll probably have that. Somebody's saying how much extra fuel about diesel, and there's another question about fuel. How much time is spent on average on motor during a crossing? In terms of extra fuel and motor. Depends on the route. So that route across from the Canaries to the Cape Verde and then down Cape Verde across, I think we motored about 3 hours or something out of 18 days or 16 days. So that was fantastic. The other crossing, it was really, really quiet. And we had quite a few days of just ghosting along at 5 knots. And then we motored for a couple of days as well. So. We don't carry a lot of extra fuel. It's hard. I don't believe in carrying tons of fuel jugs because I think they're dangerous on deck. But the best thing to do, in my view, is to carry 1 or 2 spare jerry jugs. That way, if you really need to use all the fuel, you can go right down to the bottom of the tank and you can add in the 2 jugs just at the end. So we only usually carry a little bit. So. How do you recommend someone get started in sailing? We live near the Great Lakes. This is Chad, and are looking to sail on a small sloop. So yeah, I mean, getting started in sailing. I mean, we really, our very first passage, we had done we'd done a learning to sail course for a week and chartered in the Virgin Islands for a week. So the Virgins are a great place. If you
Chartering is good.
If you want to get started in sailing, it's a secret weapon is to go to the Virgin Islands and you'll fall in love with sailing for sure. And then after that, we just did some sort of easy coastal cruising before we got into.
Yeah, we sailed our boat on Lake Ontario for a couple of seasons, and then we just took our time and headed down the intercoastal waterway, building our skills. And when the weather was good, we would go out the inlet and do an offshore sail and an overnight sail. And so we did a lot of learning by doing. We also took navigation courses from Canadian Power and Sail Squadron, and we're now instructors for CPS and help design the extended cruising course, an offshore sailing course, which has changed its name. But there are lots of ways. I'm going to call Maggie back in because they have an interesting story about how they prepared.
Meanwhile, I'll quickly just answer 1 or 2 questions here. When is the new boat ready? Are you around the Azores? No, we did the Azores 2 years ago. We're talking about that, but we're not there now. We're back in Canada. The new boat will be ready in the winter, so it'll be at the Dusseldorf Boat Show, we hope. And then we'll be sailing on that one. So what was your question? Sorry,
Maggie was going to talk about how they got into sailing.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
okay.
we're pretty new to sailing. We Doug and I got the idea about 5 years ago. In Toronto, we have a big boat show every January, And Doug said one day, we should go to the boat show. And I said, why are we going to go to the boat show? We don't want to. So we went to the boat show and found out that you could charter, which we had never heard of, the idea that you could take a vacation on a boat with a captain. And that's what we did. We signed up just after the show, and we went to the Virgin Islands and spent a lovely week there. And that was really my first time on a boat at all. And then came back to Toronto, did the Canadian equivalent to the ASA 101 or 100, like learned to sail, intro to sail course, and kind of went from there. We did a number of ASA courses, and we chartered another couple of other times, both in the Spanish Virgin Islands and the U.S. Virgin Islands, and then also I'm missing one. Anyway, we did a couple of charters and sailed a couple of times with Paul and Cheryl, which was really, really helpful, and certainly gave me a lot more confidence than I had starting out. And yeah, we've kind of grown with it from there. So yeah, now we're both determined to do more of it.
Can you talk about sail time?
Oh, sail time. Sorry, I forgot about sail time. Yes. In Toronto, actually out in Mississauga, sail time is a timeshare concept. And so the idea is sort of like time sharing a condo. You share a boat for the season. So from basically May to October, with, I think there were 8 shares in the boat in total. The company Sail Time does all this, it has software online, and so you do all your scheduling online. So it gives you a chance to have a boat without committing to owning a whole boat, and that was terrific.
After a year or something, right? Or
We did for
after
2
6 months,
summers.
or
Sorry?
You could join or leave, or you weren't really penalized for
Well, you
sign up
sign
for
for
it?
the season.
time for season.
Yeah.
But then
But
then
that's
you
that.
can just quit.
Yeah, and so we actually did it for two seasons. We were at the Port Credit Yacht Club in Mississauga. So then you also get introduced to the idea of being at a yacht club and all the social activities, and see all the boats that are there, and get to talk to people about their boats and stuff. So that was a terrific introduction as well, and that really prepared us for all sorts of things. We did a couple of weekends. We did a long day sail. We never sailed at night, but we did a long day sail from Toronto over to Niagara-on-the-Lake. And then the next summer we went in the other direction, and we went as far as Coburg. So really building our skill levels and our confidence levels. So that was a great thing to have had the opportunity to do as well.
Cool. Thank you, Maggie.
Sort of related to that, someone was asking that they're planning on doing an Atlantic crossing in 2020 with a 39-foot cutter, and do they need a captain's license or required? We have not found that. I think if you show up and want to charter a boat somewhere in a foreign country, then they're nervous about your lack of skills if you don't have all the right paperwork. But showing up with your own boat and you've sailed there, everyone sort of just assumes that you're all well qualified. So I'm trying to think if we've ever actually been asked for
Occasionally
some
we've
kind of
been
licenses.
asked, for like our certificate of competency, which is very common in Europe, but not in North America so much yet. And we have a boat operator's card in Canada, and they just wanted some kind of card with a number that they could write down on their paperwork. So, but I mean, it does help if you can get some certification. But if you own your own boat and if you made a passage there, your skills are generally accepted. And as long as the ship's papers are all in order and your passports, etc., that's generally what they're looking for. But we are coming to the end of our time here. We're going to do a draw, so if you will spin the names. We've got as first prize our box set, all 130 episodes of the Distant Shores Sailing Adventure TV series. This will get you through the winter. So, and it comes on 26 DVDs.
Yikes.
If you still have a DVD player. If you don't, it comes with as a bonus, all the downloads versions. So
because we put everything up in high definition.
yeah, on Vimeo, on demand. You can get all the programs. So that's first prize, and that's going to
Thomas Moriarty.
Thomas Moriarty. Thomas, congratulations.
So I hope you're still there, Thomas. So
Yes.
if you are, you can, or we'll try to message you or whatever to get your address to post it
to
out.
ship that out.
Thank you all.
And,
then what do we
second
have?
prize is the season 10,
Season 10.
and that is 13 episodes on 3 DVDs. And that is also available on download if you'd prefer. The winning person, we can send that to you too. And this is Grenada and Grenadines, Bahamas, and the Transatlantic Crossing to the Azores. So this has the west to east crossing on this one, where the other way is season 9 coming up.
So Paul Doran.
Paul Doran.
D-O-R-A-N. Paul Doran. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Paul. Please message us with your shipping address or request for a download, and we'll send that out to you. Hope you enjoy it. And for third prize, we have Season 9, French Canals, Morocco, Canary Islands, the Ark Rally, and Southern Caribbean. So if you're interested in the rally, this is a good one.
So that's Rick Asker. So do you... Oh, he lost our feed. Or maybe he's not still here then. He's trying to watch this from Portugal on 3G terrible internet.
Well, we'll message you, Rick.
We'll try to message you, Rick.
You
missed
are
this
the
and you
winner.
tried, so you won
Yes.
this one. So
Congratulations. And thank you, everybody. I will, after the session today, try and go through all your comments and answer any questions that we weren't able to cover in the live event today. But we so enjoy doing these, and just love our time with you on a Sunday, and appreciate you taking time out of your day to spend with us. And Paul and I just feel so blessed to live the cruising lifestyle, and it's just our hope to help other people that are thinking of doing it or considering it to get out on the water. So we've got all kinds of resources for you. The distantshores.ca website has blogs. We have tech blogs. We have lifestyle blogs. We're at numerous boat shows throughout the year conducting seminars. We'll be at Annapolis in the U.S. We'll be at Southampton Boat Show this September, Dusseldorf in January. And we just love to meet you and get in touch. And we also have started again doing our sail away weeks.
Yes.
We have various legs on our upcoming voyage on the new Southerly 480 that we're having built. That you can join us either for Transatlantic Crossing, or if you're just getting started in passage making, or totally started. We've got
Down in the
all
Caribbean and the Virgin
levels
Islands, so the
of
Caribbean
things
is a
you can
nice
do,
place
and
to
we really enjoy having
take a
people
look
aboard.
at those on our website.
Yeah.
And, thanks all for tuning in.
Yes, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and thanks for spending time with us. Bye all.
Bye.